Hi, and welcome to CreativeLive TV. I am your host, Kate Dessa, and we are back with the Work from Home Cafe. This is our fourth week here with Andrew Scrivani, and today we are going to his kitchen in New Jersey. I learned, not upstate New York last week. He is at his home in New Jersey, and we are going straight to his kitchen to learn how to make chocolate-covered macarons. So welcome back to the show, Andrew. I'm excited to have you here and excited to learn how to make chocolate macarons.
So we have to distinguish, hello everyone, we have to distinguish between a macaron and a macaroon, right?
Yes.
Because they're different things. So
was I pronouncing this correct?
I think you were somewhere right down the middle.
Oh, God.
So the French macaron is the little almond cake, little Oreo cookie looking thing. Yep. And what I'm making is a coconut macaroon, which is basically a ball of coconut and condensed milk baked in the oven. Excuse me. And dipped in chocolate. So we're going to have a little time when this stuff goes in the oven. So I'm going to go over a couple of things also, like what it takes to melt chocolate on a stovetop, because I think sometimes people might be confused by that, or you've never done it before. Maybe it's a little bit scary. Also, we're going to whip up some egg whites into somewhat of a marshmallowy kind of meringue that's going to get mixed in with our coconuts and stuff. So let me tell you the genesis of why I came up with this one for today. I wanted to do a dessert, but I also wanted to use what I had in my pantry. So I kind of went to the pantry, I looked around, I said, what's in here that I haven't really used? And it's been sitting around for a little bit. So I ended up having 2 bags of this stuff, which is this kind of flaked coconut, sugary flaked coconut. So it's not the kind of stuff you would like sprinkle on in your granola, or if you wanted to put it on, in something else, because it's really sweet. It's really designed for baking. So I had 2 bags of this. I was like, I know what I can make with that. So I kind of put together a recipe for the macaroons. Now I'm going to do it. I'm going to go back and forth between the 2 pronunciations.
That's my fault.
No. I kind of had it straight in my head, and now I'm not sure anymore. So the only thing I really needed to go out and buy for this was condensed milk. So now, if you've never used this stuff before, it's pretty amazing. I remember my grandmother used to put this in coffee when I was a kid, and I think you also make Cuban coffees and Thai coffees, like really, really heavy, sweet, really sugary coffees you make with that condensed milk, which is really quite nice. But the other thing you could do with that right in the can is make Dulce De Leche, which is pretty awesome. You basically caramelize the condensed milk, and it basically becomes Dulce De Leche. So I had to go out and buy a can. I bought 1 extra just in case I wanted to make some caramel sauce. So, but I got that, and everything else I had in my pantry. I had vanilla, eggs, salt, and then some chocolate chips. So I'm gonna show you let me tip you down so you can see what I got going on here. So you can see all my stuff here. Got coconut, egg whites, vanilla, salt, chocolate chips, and then my condensed milk. And that little beep tells me that my oven is warm. So that means we can get started. So I'm going to go through the process of mixing these up and go through a couple of things. I'm going to have to move you around a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. But so I'm going to point you down here for a sec. I have some sheet pans. You can see me over here. I have some sheet pans lined with parchment paper. One is for baking, and the other one is for dipping. Once I've dipped them, I'm going to need that to put them on so that they'll cool. And I'm also going to get started here with a nice big bowl. I'm going to put you down so you can see me. Let's make sure you can see everything. Good.
Yep, looks good.
Great. Okay. If I go in a little more, you're good. Okay. So I'm going to start with my coconut It's going to be a little clumpy, so I'm going to break some of it up with my hands. It's a little sticky. Don't be afraid. It's okay. All right.
And what if we have, sweetened coconut at home that's not this kind of, wait, I'm sorry, remind me. Was
unsweetened. This is sweetened. This is sweetened coconut.
Okay.
And unsweetened coconut is, a little bit more versatile. You could use it for your granola. You could bake with it. You could do a lot of things with it, put it on top of things. I mean, some people use the sweetened for everything, but it is quite sweet. So it's not, okay. First thing I want to do is I'm going to mix in the condensed milk. It's very kind of gooey. It's very sugary and thick.
Growing up, my dad used to make toast with just lather on condensed milk. He grew up eating it.
So we're going to mix this through, and then it could sit there for a second while we get through with our other things. So I'm using a rubber spatula and a glass bowl, but you could use a wooden spoon. You could use your fingers. You could use whatever you like to get this kind of mixed through. And I'm also going to put my vanilla in there. So now almost all of our ingredients are already been put into play. So you can see it's a really simple recipe. You want to give it a good mix because it's going to take a bit to get everything covered in both the condensed milk and to dissipate the vanilla, because it's not a lot of vanilla. So you got to really get in there and dig at the bottom and get all that dry ingredients mixed together. But once this is set, it's going to be nice. Okay. Have you made these before, Kate?
I have not. I love them. They honestly are something, and any sort of French dessert I get a little intimidated by and assume it's difficult because French desserts are so, delicate and beautiful and rich that there's usually a lot of technique that goes into them. So I just kind of always assumed there was a lot more technique that went into these.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable, but it's, I think when you're making pastry, it's one thing. Like, there's no flour in this, so it's really forgiving. Sorry, I'm plugging things in here. If you can't see me, I've just ducked down to plug in my mixer. There we go. I wanted to move so you can see me. All right, so I'm going to take my egg whites, and I'm going to put them in here with a little bit of salt. I'm going to sprinkle it right in. And this is going to get loud, so maybe if you want to mute or something, but I'm going to basically be...
All right.
So it's going to get foamy, and then it'll start to stiffen. And once we get a nice, creamy, sort of marshmallowy texture, to see what your process here is to get air into the whites. And the more air, the fluffier it gets.
And if we don't have an electronic mixer, is it possible to
do this with a whisk?
Okay.
You can absolutely do this with a whisk. You can do it with your stand mixer. You can do this with a different attachment. You could do the whisk attachment on here. So there's a lot of ways to do this. If you do it by hand, it's with a whisk. It's very satisfying, but it is absolutely exhausting to whip this into. So one of the tricks that I utilize sometimes when I feel like I'm not getting enough air into it is I may blow on it a little. And that actually pushes even more air into it, unless that's just my imagination. It's absolutely possible. But you can see I'm getting nice and fluffy now.
Yeah.
So they talk about, when you talk about mixing these things, you talk about peaks, soft peaks, or
yeah.
So when you get to a situation where you're up to soft peaks, I'm going to show you by pulling this out. You'll pull it up like that, and you'll see that it has these tiny little peaks. like it'll stick up. And then once you get a really solid, firm peak, it'll stand there. So we're going to try to get to a stiffer peak, maybe speed up a little. And moving it around also helps get the air in there. And you can see it's getting even stiffer now. And this is really quite forgiving. It's not like making whipped cream where you're afraid you're going to break it. But you see now that's kind of a soft peak now. I'm almost to where I want to be.
So can you over whip? This is a meringue technically.
See, there we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
I'm going to go for just a minute longer. I couldn't hear you before. So.
Oh, okay. I was saying, is it possible to over whip it?
I think you can. I mean, eventually, once it gets kind of thick and heavy like this, you don't really want to go much further. I'm going to give it one little whip here, and then I'm going to call it. I feel like I have a good enough firmness to it. And now I'm going to fold this into here. Now, when I say fold, I don't mean stir aggressively. So I'm going to put it in nice and gently. See, it's nice and airy and light. If I put sugar in this, it would get even stiffer. But there's so much sugar in this recipe, it's already got quite enough. So I'm going to fold this in gently. I'm going to try to keep the air in there as much as I can and fold it in. So I'm going to kind of just go from over the top like this and press it down softly until all of that foamy egg white is incorporated into my batter. You were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, so technically are these, the whipped egg whites, is that technically a meringue or is a meringue slightly different?
Meringue has to have sugar in it.
Okay.
I was actually considering doing a meringue-based dessert. And maybe we'll do that on a later date because I really like making pavlova. Have you ever made a pavlova?
No, I don't even know what a pavlova is.
Yeah, a pavlova is a meringue cake, which you basically make this kind of marshmallowy stuff. You put it flat on sheet pans like that, and then you bake it, and it gets really stiff. And then you layer fruit and cream in between them and squash them together. It's amazing.
Ooh, that sounds good.
So this is our batter, and it's ready to be put onto our sheet pans. Sip of coffee for me. Okay, so you can do this with an ice cream scooper, like a one tablespoon ice cream scooper. You know, the one that's about that big. You could do it that way, or you could do this kind of quenelle technique where you use a couple of spoons to form a little ball, and then you put them on like that. That's what I'm going to do today. Again, I'm going to go a little technique-y on you.
Yeah.
So
I would probably be using my hands.
You could do that, but this is super sticky, so it's not
fair.
So I made one a little too big, so I'm going to make this one a little bigger. And you can kind of just give them a little more shape as they go. They're pretty forgiving. A little more. It's kind of messy, but nice. Take a little off. Take a little off the top. So at this point, the challenge is just sort of trying to keep them around the same size. But you know, these are really quite forgiving in that they'll cook through either way. It's not, you know, there's not a whole lot here. Like, it's not like you're working with raw egg or you're working with dough. I mean, this is basically just a big sugar bomb. Yeah. And then we're going to put more sugar on it.
So is there, are macaroons only made of coconut like this, or can you make them with other ingredients, or is that what makes a macaroon?
I mean, I think that is kind of what makes a macaroon, but I have seen people make them out of other stuff because obviously some people might have dietary restrictions, and the idea with this is it's really sweet,
Yeah.
And it's the texture is great. I mean, have you ever had a Samoa, the Girl Scout cookie?
Yeah, exactly.
This is very similar. I mean, ultimately they're probably the same thing, except that you put caramel on your Samoa. Those are super addictive and crazy delicious.
So I recently learned, or they recently changed the name of the Samoa, but I think they call. I grew up in the Midwest, and and I was a Girl Scout, and we had them, and they were Samoas. But I think on the West Coast they call them something different. Now I have to look it up.
Oh wow, that actually, that sort of rings a bell, and I don't know for sure, but I think you might be right that the Girl Scout cookies in different regions have different names.
Yes.
Because there's all kinds of cookies and stuff that have different names in different parts of the country.
So yes, they're called Caramel Delights.
Ah, okay. So you could see, I'm going to pop these in the oven as soon as they're ready, and then I'm going to make whatever I have left here on a second sheet pan, because I want to get these in the oven so we can get a move on this this photo shoot we're going to do. Because I really want I really want to take pictures of these. I think they're going to be beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of touch up my little.
They're looking pretty good.
Shapes, yeah, they look pretty good. I'm going to get these in the oven. They're going to take about 25 minutes. So Kate, you've been my
I am your timer.
You've been my timer, so be my timer again.
All right, I can handle that.
Okay, so we're going to make a few more. But, one of the things I learned when I was doing Kate McDermott's newest book, which Pie Camp, which I just wrapped the absolute last picture for the book yesterday. If you looked at my Instagram at all, you'll see on my story that there was this really lovely layered pie that I had to make because I don't have a food stylist or Kate McDermott right now. So I had to make it myself, and it came rather good. I was very surprised at myself because it was really technically hard, and it was something that I was stressing out because it has a graham cracker crust, and when you cut a pie with a graham cracker crust, you have absolutely no idea whether or not it's actually going to hold up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And I needed to get a nice clean slice out of it so I could take a picture of the layers, because it was for a chapter on layered pies. So I was the pressure was on, and I had one shot at it. And it actually worked. I had put a sign up in my refrigerator while it was chilling overnight to my housemates here that if you got near my pie, there might be penalty of death, because I only had one shot at it. And then everybody got some pie at the end, so my empty threats didn't really scare anybody. All right, we're getting to the end. I think we maybe get two more out of this. And if you really wanted to taste this right now, just to see what it tastes like, it wouldn't hurt you, because there's nothing in it that could make you sick. There's no raw egg or anything like that. Okay, so that's that. Those will go in a second.
When you have seen people make with something other than coconut, what are some replacements potentially do?
You know what? I'd have to look it up. I actually just saw one when I was doing a little bit of research on this. When I Googled some of that stuff, a few of the non-coconut versions popped up, but I actually didn't look at it. So I'm guilty that I did not do my due diligence on that.
That's my job as your host. I can do that while you're cooking.
Excellent. Okay, so I want to show you how to separate an egg, or at least how I separate an egg. so we could at least have a little bit of a little technique school of cooking here. Because I think sometimes people get a little intimidated by doing things like egg separation, which, you shouldn't. It's not that bad. So I get a good crack in the egg. Then I hold it and I separate it like this, right? So the yolk is still in one side. Now you can do one of these transfer back and forth kind of routines. But
yeah, that's usually what I do.
You run the risk of popping the yolk sometimes because it's a little jagged on the edge. So the other thing that I like to do is just put it in my hand. And you actually get a lot more of the white off of the yolk. And then you can take the yolk away. See, now I have a nice clean look there. So, or you could also do it sort of on your own, like just straight into your hand, which is what I've been doing lately, is just sort of going right into my hand and letting it run through your fingers. It's kind of gooey and satisfying. And then you have your perfect egg yolk, which also makes a really nice picture.
Yeah.
It's also kind of fun to play with.
Yeah. Especially when you don't, that one looks like a perfect one.
That was perfect,
I had a couple poached egg disasters this weekend. I was trying to poach some eggs, and exactly what you just said. I was trying to get a little of the egg white off.
Yep.
So I was pushing it back and forth between the two shells, and just every time I went to go dump it in the boiling water, it got caught. The yolk got caught on the shell and cracked before it even hit the water.
I know. So I'm going to show you I'm going to basically recreate what we just made, except this time I'm going to do it with a whisk and see if how long until I can get it like foamy.
Okay.
So I go back and forth, and you can see it almost immediately starts to get foamy, and then once you get that, you start whipping. So I go back and forth until it gets foamy, and then I start whipping. And you can see it already starting to get pretty foamy. And like I said, it's really about how fast you can get the air into it. Are you timing me?
I am.
This is my exercise for the day. I'll run one really big arm. See, this is actually going pretty quick because I'm getting a lot of air. I'm getting a lot of air underneath. See, I'm not just stirring. Whew, I need a break. But this is the meditative portion of our show, where you get to watch me whip egg whites into
what's the soothing sounds that people listen to on YouTube?
Oh, ASMR.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that.
This is your ASMR for the day. All right, so you see I've got almost to where I was before, and that took maybe 2 to 3 minutes of sort of pretty aggressive whisking. But like I said, you don't really need a mixer if you don't have one. So if you got a whisk, you're going to be perfectly fine. You'll have some forearm muscles after that, and you'll be looking great. Okay, so I want to show you what's next, which is how to melt chocolate in a double boiler. Basically, if you don't own a double boiler, you don't need one. Basically, all you need is a pot of water and a metal pot, a metal bowl. You put it on and get that heated up. And while that's heating, I'm gonna go get my shoulder strap so you can I can put you on my chest. So I will be right back.
Sounds good. And I'll remind everybody, this is your work from home cafe. We are live with Andrew Scrivani from his home in New Jersey. And every Monday at 12 o'clock, we're coming to you with a new recipe. And today we are making chocolate covered macaroon, not macaroons, macaroon. And so we have just finished making the base of our macaroons, which was egg whites, coconut, and little vanilla, and condensed milk, excuse me. So we made those all into little balls, and now Andrew is about to show us how to correctly melt some chocolate that we're going to drizzle on top. Chocolate has been, for me, something until I actually started working in a restaurant. It was always something that I struggled to do at home because it kind of, which is probably something you're going to teach us right now, but it would always harden and kind of get that like gray, white sheen on top. And it never looked pretty anymore because I wasn't actually melting it. I was just kind of sticking it in the microwave and melting it, and that hardens and creates that. So this is going to teach us how to keep the chocolate beautiful and not get that kind of weird sheen that tends to happen if you let it. Do you know what causes that, Andrew, actually?
When, if you're talking about tempering chocolate. So
yeah,
by tempering chocolate, you're basically bringing it up to temp, and hopefully what you're achieving in that is that you're going to let it continue to shine after. We don't necessarily, in a situation like this, you don't necessarily have to temper the chocolate. So what we're doing today is we're just going to show you how to appropriately melt the chocolate. Tempering it would require us to monitor it to a particular temperature, which we're not going to do today because it's not necessary, and it's an extra step that if you're just trying to do these things for the first time, tempering chocolate is not the thing that's going to build your confidence.
Yes.
So our double boiler is now nice and hot from the steam of created from underneath. I put my chocolate chips in. I'm using 2 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips, sort of like the ones you use in a chocolate chip cookie. And you're going to see immediately this is going to start to like just break down. And you're not over direct heat. So this is why this works better than if you just threw it in the pot, because then you would scald the bottom and it wouldn't melt properly. It would just all stick together and seize up. That's something that you watch out for when you're working with chocolate, is that if you cook it too fast or over too high a flame, it's going to seize and it's just going to get like grainy and it's not going to be creamy and nice. So this will melt nice and slowly over this double boiler that we created. Remember, use your oven mitten because you will burn your hand if you don't. And using a rubber spatula will help you kind of get that chocolate off the bottom and keep it moving. Now, we may technically be doing this a little too early, but we could always reheat it if we have to. But we don't have...
Macaroons have been in the oven for about 10 minutes.
About 10? Okay, good.
Yep.
Great. See, we're getting a little more broken down here. But ultimately, if you've seen the cover of my book, you know I have a penchant for melted chocolate.
Yeah. So in what instance would you temper chocolate versus doing this?
Candy.
Candy, okay.
When you're making candy, because, the look of it is really going to matter. Mm-hmm. Candy's really going to be the reason. Now, you could also thin this out a little bit with a little bit of cream or a little bit of milk if you wanted to make it a little bit more liquidy for dipping purposes. That's totally possible. We may actually come back to it. But the more you heat it, the more of the milk solids from the butter and the chocolate will start to break down. See how nice and creamy it is now?
Yeah. And
nice
why would you do this over just popping some chocolate in the microwave?
Well, I don't know. Because if you really want to cook, you want to get used to getting technique-y. I mean, I think, melting this appropriately to the right, however you actually feel comfortable melting this down to get to the point where you could dip stuff in it, I will absolutely encourage you to do that. But I do ultimately want, if you're trying to learn some cooking techniques from me, to learn how to do things that if you do decide to take the next step, you want to learn how to do it in a way that if I am going to temper this chocolate and I want to make it so that it will continue to shine, and when you want to learn candy making, any of that kind of stuff, you can't do that in a microwave. So this is sort of 101.
All right. This is our entry into.
Yeah, this is sort of entry level, get confident and comfortable with working with things like chocolate. And, baking in general is very precise. There's a lot of precision in baking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, using a digital scale, like I use a digital scale for everything. So
yeah, I just got one actually.
And I do tend to do gram measurements more than ounces for baking, because they're more precise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that actually helps a lot. So I'm going to leave that right where it is. I may come back to that and just warm that up again in a bit, because I want to make sure that that's going to be loose enough to dip our macaroons in it. And what we could do is I can take a knee here, and I don't know if you can see, but let's see how we're doing in there. Can you see in there?
Oh yeah, we can see a little bit.
Yeah, you can see that a little bit of the liquid is sort of pooling at the bottom and creating a little bit of a base. And when you go to dip these in chocolate, that flat base at the bottom is where you're going to grab it from the top when they're cool enough and dip them right in the chocolate and then set them aside. So that's sort of that'll be the technique we go through. So, all right, I'm going to take you off my chest here for a second. So put you back on the tripod.
Right. And I'll remind everybody, this is CreativeLive TV. This is our weekly show with Andrew Scrivani, professional food photographer and author. He is in his kitchen in New Jersey, teaching us how to make coconut macaroons. Right now, we've just melted some chocolate. We have popped our macaroons in the oven, and we're just waiting for them to finish crisping up, and then we're going to dip some of our coconut macaroons into our chocolate. And while we wait just a few more minutes for that, Andrew's going to show us a few different techniques on how to set up our kitchen so we can take beautiful photos of these when we're done cooking them. So again, this is, he is all set and ready
I'm moving you. Yes, I'm moving you around. All right, so I'm going to flip you around so you can see me. There we go.
There we go.
So I'm going to sit here for a second, and we're going to talk about a few things that I've been doing while I'm home in my space without my studio. So using sort of everyday things to make my photo studio a little more functional. So a couple of the things that I've always talked about and I always use are these A-clamps. These are great because what I do is I take pieces of cardboard, and then I can actually attach the A-clamp to the bottom so that it will stand up on its own. So that when I want to use this as a fill card,
perfect.
When you want to use it as a fill card, either make it tall, it stands by itself, I can move it around the table. It's really great.
Yeah, and you can just get those at a hardware store?
These, any hardware store will have A-clamps. You can get them at an art supply store or a hardware store, any of the above. So the other thing I like to do with these is you can attach then different colored paper to them. So like, for example, I used this one yesterday. I just folded it in half and I put a piece of paper from the printer. I just taped a piece of paper from the printer in it just to hang it up. It's kind of sloppy and falling apart right now because I used it yesterday. But you basically you don't even need the A clamp if you don't have one. You just sort of put a piece. So I taped this piece of paper in here to create like a white bounce card. Yeah. And I put it right next to my pie when I was shooting yesterday. And it was great. And like, you can get way more sophisticated with this. You can get pieces of foam core. You can use, black construction paper. You could use white, whatever you want to use. It doesn't matter. It's just a blunt instrument to bounce light back off of your subjects. Now, consequently, sometimes what I'm finding in this space is I don't have enough shadow. So there are times when I want to use a dark surface. So I have this sort of big sheet of black fabric that I can hang up, even on the back of a chair or on anything like on the table. I could just put something on the table, like a box or something, and just drape this over it. And what it's going to do, excuse me, is it's going to create a negative sort of light reflection and create more shadows on whichever side I want. Now, I can make this as small as I want. I can make it kind of as big as like a piece of paper and just drape it over something so it's sort of sitting there and creating this negative. I could use it as a backdrop. If I can hang it in the back, I could use it as a backdrop. I could use it as a tablecloth. So if I want to just shoot something against black, there's a lot of uses for just a really good piece of black fabric in your studio. You could cut it into smaller pieces if you really wanted to. I'm not going to do that today because I'm not going to cut that one up. But you can use it for a lot of different things that help you create negative as well. So your white bounce can be anything as simple as some cardboard with paper taped to it. You can use your A clamps just to set them up. You can clip this to the back of the chair if you're shooting on the floor. You can use it a lot of different ways, anything to hold that in place. You can just take a piece of cardboard. Even just this will work in some way to just give a little bit. You can actually create a little shadow or bounce with just that. All of those sort of just DIY situations. So like even now, right? If you see, if I take this off frame, if I remove it, there's a little more light on that side. If I put it in again, out of frame, there, I can kind of create a little bit of shadow around my head. So you can do a lot of things with just what you have in your house. I'm a professional photographer with a studio full of equipment, and this is what I used yesterday. So, I don't want to bring all my stuff down here. I don't want to bring light stands. I don't want to bring all the, fill cards and all these other things. I have beautiful light in here. I will get what I need out of this space. But sometimes if you just need a little bit of help, that will certainly can be done with, a DIY approach.
Totally. So I just want to tell you, you're at 20 minutes for
20 minutes.
your
Okay.
macaroons. Yeah.
I'm going to check on them. We'll check on them in 5 because they said 25 to 30. I'm going to talk about the gear I want to use today too, because I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I know that you've watched me over the past 3 weeks shoot with this lens, which is my 50 prime 1.2. This is my sort of prized 50. And then you've seen me with this little compact macro that is still attached to my camera. What I'm going to do today, because remember now, our macaroons are only about that big when they're finished, right? I want to use my 100mm macro, which will get me super close. So I'm going to be able to fill up the entire frame with that pastry without a whole lot of room around it with that lens, without having to get super close either. So I can actually be a little bit away from the table so I'm not influencing the light. And I can take a really good close-up with that lens. So we'll talk about that, and I'll show you what that looks like once we get everything out on the table later. The other thing I wanted to talk about in the same vein as the light bouncing cards and the black fabric is what you're wearing. Now, you're wearing a white shirt. Yeah. And you would be a good reflective surface in a studio setting. So if you were shooting a backlit situation like I am, it would be advantageous to be wearing white because you then become your own bounce card.
Yeah.
Now
I never thought of that at all.
I'm wearing black. So I'm going to create a neg with my presence. So the closer I get to my subject, the more negative shadowing I'm going to create. So it's all, a lot of times you forget that you could influence the photograph. Like if you're standing in a sunny room wearing a red shirt, you're going to cast red on your subject. If you're standing in with a white shirt, you're going to push light back on it. You're standing there with a black shirt, you might create some negative fill. So everything that and especially when you're shooting macro lenses and you intend to be close to the subject, you intend to be right on top of the table, you need to think about what you're wearing, because it's going to influence the colors of the light in the room, if that makes sense.
Totally, it does. And it's not something that me personally, I've ever really thought about when I'm shooting.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think there's definitely, you don't think about it that much, but why do you see photo assistants always just running around in black, right?
Yeah.
Because they're trying to not influence the light in any way. So that's really the best way to do it, because once the gaffer has set the lighting in a particular studio setting, the last thing you need is somebody in a white shirt walking by and bouncing light on your subject. So, hey, you got your coffee. So are there any questions about any of this?
Let's see if anybody has questions.
I'll get my hand exercises in while we're waiting. DIY, Jim.
So we have a question. When we are working with natural light like you are in your house, and if you don't have, a huge window like you do in yours, and say we only have a small amount, a normal size window, not like,
okay,
floor to ceiling.
Yeah, sure. Are
you sometimes bringing in some non-natural light? Are you using a lamp, or, is it, what do you suggest if somebody doesn't necessarily have this beautiful lighting in their home?
I mean, I think what you're talking about is mixing light, and mixing light is super difficult because light is at different temperatures. So daylight is somewhere between like 4,000 and 5,500 Kelvin, and like the lights in your house, they range, but depending on the style, most people's home lighting like sort of ventures into the tungsten range, which is a little warmer and orangey looking. So if you were mixing daylight and tungsten, it would kind of start to look funky. My suggestion would be to push your camera as hard as you can, meaning drive up your ISO number to get the right amount of light into the lens so that you can create the picture you want with the available light you have. Now, even just one window, standard daylight in the middle of the day, most cameras on the market are going to handle that without a problem. You just have to push it a little further than you might think you would.
Okay.
So like in here, let's see, where am I right now? Take the lens cap off. Let's see. No, I don't want to be there. Oh, there's no card in my camera. See what happens when you... Okay. I will put a card in my camera. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is 125th of a second at 5.0 aperture at 400, and I think I'm a little dark. You could see.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's try this first. I'm going to put the fill card in.
There we go.
Now, it didn't really get much better. So I'm going to go to 800 ISO with the same other settings and the fill card. And that definitely helped. Now, remember, we're shooting a black object against the light.
Yeah.
And I can probably pull some of that out in post-production. So I wouldn't really need to do much more than that. But let's just, for argument's sake, we're still in really good range here. I'm going to go to 1600 ISO with the fill card. And now everything is clear. So even at 1600 ISO, which you would think, we were talking 10 years ago, we'd be shuddering at the thought of driving these cameras up to 1600 ISO. But quite honestly, I've shot this camera at 6400 without any real breakup. And if you're shooting stuff that primarily is going to be shown on the web, I mean, there is no limit because it's a 72 DPI image anyway.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I wouldn't worry so much about the daylight aspect of trying to bring in extra light. I would work on the light you have, using fill cards and using the settings in your camera to push as much light as possible into the lens. You're going to be much happier with the result.
And what if we are shooting on an iPhone or a mobile phone? This speaks to your new class on Creative Live, which is about mobile food photography.
That's right. The phones are better than the cameras, believe it or not, in low light.
All right.
They really are. I mean, my new one, the iPhone 11 Pro, has a night mode, and it actually shoots in low light really, really well. So I think you have less of an issue with making pictures with an iPhone because it will automatically adjust to the light in the room, even night light, like when you're in a restaurant. So I would say I've seen those cameras in a dark restaurant still make a nice picture. So that's less of an issue than with a DSLR for sure. That's sort of like, you know, it's a no-brainer. You can use any light and it'll be fine.
All right.
I've been shooting with my phone a lot for the Instagram stuff, and I'm really happy with the results. I mean, I'm able to process them a little. You know, in the mobile class, I talk about shooting through Lightroom so that you could use a digital negative file, which is actually a really substantial file. And if you made a great picture with your phone with a DNG and then processed it in Lightroom, some people would be hard pressed to tell the difference between that and a DSLR.
Really? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's not for all applications, but there are instances like outdoors where it's amazing. You know, it's an amazing tool. I shot a picture of the moon yesterday. The moon was out in daylight. It was really pretty. And I zoomed in with the zoom lens, and I got a pretty nice image of the moon. I mean, and you know how hard it is to shoot the moon. You know? So the moon is really hard because we're moving, and you don't realize we're moving, but you know, we're moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
a little bit of camera shake. So let's go check on our macaroons.
Just hit our 30-minute mark.
Okay. And you can see our chocolate sort of stiffened up a little. So we're going to have to loosen that up again. We just hit the 30-minute mark. Oh, look at that. All right. Watch this. All right. So let me put you up here. I'm going to pull those out, and then I'll bring you over and show you what they look like. So these look amazing. So check this out.
Oh wow, those turned out so well.
They have that really
little
nice
crispy, on top.
So I'm going to let them sit for a minute or so and cool off because I don't think I can handle them yet. Plus, I have those other ones that are still in the oven. So I'll take you with me. I know I don't want to leave you. I don't want to leave you alone.
And is it ideal to have them completely cooled before you put them in the chocolate, or is there a temp you're looking for specifically?
I just think you're cool enough to handle.
Okay.
So the other ones came out. They're good too. So we're good. I'm going to show you again because I got some really nice ones with the little crispies on the top. So these kind of came out nice too.
Oh yeah, those did too.
And I wouldn't expect them to take very long, but they may take a minute or two to cool off because those sheet pans are hot. But if I could pull it off the sheet pan, let's see if I could be creative about this. I think I could probably grab it off the sheet pan and it'll cool a little faster. Oh yeah. Put them right on the marble here. Cool. All right, that's too hot, so I'm not going to touch that because I have done that in the past. Please remember to put your oven mittens back on. Take these. All right. Yeah, that worked out. I'll show you. Check it out. So,
Oh yeah, those
they're
look
not
so
super
good.
hot. They're okay. I could probably handle them as soon as this chocolate is melted again. So,
And is it the egg white that causes it to stay together? Like I would expect that those would have spread out a little bit more.
yes, the
Okay.
egg white definitely is a binding agent in
Okay.
this. So these are ready to eat now. Now, if we wanted to eat them, we could definitely eat them now. So I'm going to put some more parchment on these sheet pans so that we could, once we dip them in the chocolate, we'll put them over there. So how do we set this up? So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to bring this over here, which is still hot, so I don't want to burn my hand. Yeah, that's probably not ideal. This is probably more ideal. There we go. You didn't see what I did. I just put a plate down. Okay, so I'm going to get you back on my chest again. I know we're like rolling all around here today. So hang out a second. I'm going to get you back on the work from home cafe cam.
Oh, we're going for a spin.
Yeah, I took you for a spin, and then I'm going to put you on here. I have a little, this one has a little dial where you could just turn until it locks on, which isn't so bad. Yeah. How's that? Can you see what I'm doing?
Yep, looks great.
Okay. I'm going to turn this back on now. It'll take a sec. But it'll loosen up that chocolate again. And then we'll just start dipping them. It's like, didn't loosen up completely. You know, it didn't seize up completely, which shows you that we did it the right way. And we probably want to keep that pretty loose while we're working with this. Okay, so I'm going to take one here, and I'm just going to dip the bottom, pull it out. You can see I got this nice chocolate on the bottom. I'm going to lay it this way so it dries. You see what I did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and you don't want to get it too heavy. Just a quick dip. These are still a little soft, so I'm. Uh-oh. Emergency.
They're breaking on you.
Yeah, I broke a little because it's a little. I'm working a little too fast. That's okay. We'll be all right. Could just kind of also paint it a little bit. It might also work. At the end of the day, as long as it's got chocolate on the bottom, right?
That's all that matters.
And I could probably put them face down on the parchment. It wouldn't probably be that big a deal. They'll probably come right off once the chocolate hardens. But I want to eat one right away, so.
And you put the chocolate on the bottom because it's easier to just, or
I don't know. Let's do it both ways.
Yeah, I was wondering.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen it. This actually is a little easier. Let's do it both ways. And then we can show you like that one's not so pretty. All right,
yeah, I think it might affect the prettiness.
Well, we are a photography show as well, so
yes. So we do care about how it ends up looking.
Yes.
Although we're not just a photography show. It tastes delicious and looks delicious is the goal.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna get one of these from over here and then I'm gonna give it a good dip. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Woo. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. I kind of think I like the one like with the chocolate on the bottom better.
Yeah, I think those look cleaner.
Ow.
Did you touch the
burn yourself?
Pan?
All right, I probably don't need this to be on the flame anymore. All right, let's experiment and see what happens if I put it down on the chocolate like that. I'm down with just trying whatever here.
Let's see what works best.
I gotta remember to keep you center. Okay. I want to try one. I'm actually kind of jonesing to try one. I'm gonna do like this. I'm gonna dip one and just eat it.
See, that's the best part about cooking, is tasting things as you go along.
As expected, they're delicious. Really nice with the chocolate, but really, did you see me drop that? All right. They're really good. Not sticky sweet, which you would think they might be. They're actually just sweet enough. And then with the chocolate, really nice. Okay, so.
And I assume you're using bittersweet chocolate, right?
Yes. So, oh no, I'm sorry. I use semi-sweet this time because I like the taste of a chocolate chip kind of flavor.
Yeah.
And the semi-sweet gives you that. So I think this guy right here is a really nice hero for our picture because he's got this really crusty, beautiful top. Totally. And I think if I give it a little bit of a kind of a careful dipping, my chocolate is, I'm going to kind of paint this guy. So when you're doing stuff for photography, sometimes you don't do it exactly the way you would do it when you're cooking. So I'm going to just paint this with chocolate so you can just kind of see that it has like a little chocolate base. And get it around the edge a little bit so it's pretty. Yeah, you can definitely tell it has chocolate. And then what I'm going to do is take a fresh piece of parchment and bring it over to the studio table, which is my dining room table. I like to shoot pastries and different things on parchment. It makes it really pretty. All right, let's get a couple more now for background. These other guys kind of are probably decent dry now. Bring them over. I'm going to squash it down a little bit so that you can see that there's chocolate underneath. Most of this stuff won't stick to the parchment, so it'll be good. All right.
And if you were gonna prop this with something besides the macaroons, what would you do? Maybe some chocolate?
Yeah, like a drizzle. Like you can actually. I've done these too, where you put them. I've done. I'm talking to this camera. Hold on a second. My hands are dirty. Can't talk with dirty hands. I've done them where you put them out on the sheet pan, on the parchment, and then drizzle the chocolate like this. So actually, you know what? I probably have enough chocolate left in here where if I get it liquid again, we could do that too with this other set. So let's shoot those. Then I'll come back. I'll make a few with the drizzle, and then we'll shoot those. So why don't we go over and shoot the ones we have?
Sounds good.
I'll take you with me here.
Everyone's getting hungry. Everyone wants to make these now.
Oh, I hope you do, because if you got these ingredients, it's worth it. Okay. There we go. And you're still on my chest here, so I'm going to get you off here. And go for, I'm not going to make you spin this time. I'm just going to hold you steady.
And I'll just remind everyone, this is CreativeLive TV, and we are in New Jersey at Andrew Scrivani's home. He's taking us into his kitchen to teach us how to make a new recipe every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and then he shows us how to take beautiful photos of it. So today we are making chocolate-covered coconut macaroons, and he is setting the table for us to set up the picture.
Could you see both of those cameras okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I have a nice kind of setup here where I feel like this one that I identified as my hero is at the front. And you see, it doesn't look like a whole lot here, but when you're in a macro lens, everything that's back here just kind of becomes atmosphere. So we're going to start with the 50 macro, just to get a baseline as to where I want to be. Okay. I'm actually a little bright at 1600, but what I'll do is I'm going to add a little aperture to this because I want to get as much clarity as I can. Yeah. It's okay. I'm going to move out closer to the window because I feel like I don't have enough shimmer or sheen. So now I have a little bit of light bleed coming in out of the top right corner of the shot. And I'll show you now because you could see that light bleed coming in, which I really like. Are you frozen? Are you there?
Nope, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So this nice low angle, I could see the shimmer on the chocolate. I could see that light bleed coming in, and I have a little bit of atmosphere with the other ones happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe even from the top, you get something a little more graphic. This is also dark now, so I'm going to have to back off on my aperture. That's too bright. So you can see too, like from the top, you can get a nice.
Oh yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch out to the other lens now to show you the difference I can get with this 100 millimeter macro lens. And I'm really, really close now, filling the whole frame, and then everything in behind it really falls out pretty considerably. So you could see that the difference.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. That makes
Yeah,
a big difference.
Makes a big difference with the fall off in the back. The depth of field is considerably changed when you move it and you get really close to it. That's a little soft. You have to be careful with these lenses because you do get a lot of camera shake because it's a longer lens. So it's ideal if you have a tripod to be on.
Oh yeah, wow.
Right?
That's beautiful, yeah.
So like you can also come in from the sort of a 3/4 angle, which is nice too, because you can kind of get the shape of them a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and that's just coming up just ever so slightly above. You can see I'm focusing on that one hero because he's got that nice color and that kind of odd little shape to him. It's a really nice. Hold on, coming back. There we go.
There we go.
So.
Oh yeah, that looks great.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the stove. I'll bring you with me.
Okay.
Because I want to try to do something. Let me see if I can put this in another way where you can see what I'm doing. Well, you can see me. I can talk to you while I'm doing this because you know what I'm doing. I'm also going to bring some of these over there on a fresh sheet of parchment so that when I come back with a drizzle, I can drizzle the hot chocolate over these. So I'll be right back. You can see me on the other camera. Let me get those other ones. These are really pretty.
You can see all that beautiful natural light you have at your house.
Yeah, this is pretty special today. We got some really nice light today. Okay, I think I got a couple more that could look good on there, and then we'll see how much. Okay, so I'm gonna heat this up again. I'm actually gonna grab a little bit more. Have some right here. I'm gonna grab a little more, melt down a little more chocolate. I'm gonna throw a little bit of cream in there too, so it's nice and loose. And I'll pick this up off the floor before I step on it. Just a tiny bit of cream, just to help loosen it up a little bit.
You're adding the cream this time around just because we're trying to drizzle it, right?
Exactly, yeah. I want to make it more liquid. So the cream will help break it up and liquefy it a little bit. And this should be fun. How are we doing on time?
We are at 1:05 actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How about that? I thought we'd be under.
No, right. This has been you've had a lot of interesting questions or just things that have kind of come up that help us figure out how to take better pictures at home.
Yeah. All right. I needed to get my contraption off. It's getting a little uncomfortable. Okay, I'm kind of hurrying this. Oh, it would help if my stove was lit. I'm like, why isn't this melting? So I added a little more cream. Just help it along.
That's just regular cream or milk or half and half?
It's regular cream, like regular heavy whipping cream.
All right.
And this will break down pretty quick now because it's hot. All right, we're almost there. Are you ready to make these, Kate?
I am. I'm excited. I have everything but the coconut, but I think I can order the coconut through.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too with some of these dry goods that, that you can actually order online. It's not as stressful if you don't want to go to the market right now. That's totally understandable. I have to go to the market because a lot of the orders and deliveries from in this area have been sort of suspended because it's so busy.
Okay.
So I unfortunately haven't been able to get a home delivery in about a month.
Yeah, that's what I have a couple friends that are still in the city in New York, and it's taking them weeks. They put it in an order, and 10 days later they're gonna get it potentially. And I just had a friend drive out. She drove out to this big turkey farm just north of the city and bought a bunch of turkey meat instead.
Oh, well, the farms, a couple of the people I'm friendly with that are out on the east end of Long Island have only been shopping at the local farms because trying to get into the few markets that are there and trying to get
chaos. Yeah,
it's chaos. It's dangerous. It's just it's not worth the trouble. And the farmers markets have been super helpful and obviously really grateful for the business. All right, I think we're ready. I got a nice loose chocolate here. I think it's gonna hold up pretty nice. I'm gonna get a spoon for some drizzling. And remember to wear your glove. All right, so I'm gonna bring you over first. And can you see? Is that good? Okay. Yeah. Coming back with the chocolate right off the hot. And can you see me here? We're good?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Oh, that looks so good. So are you trying to make some sort of pattern, or are you just kind of going?
I'm just kind of going zigzag.
Natural.
I'm just trying to create a zig. But I'm also, when you think about shooting like this, I'm also thinking about what it looks like, not just on the cookie, but also on the
parchment paper.
On the parchment, because I want to see like those zigzag squiggles,
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Coming back. Now, check this out. I'm going to go back to the 50 prime now because I want to shoot this from overhead and see all these squiggles and stuff. And let me just make one correction, and I think I'm good. So, well, hold on. Oh, well, there we go.
There we go. Oh, wow, that looks beautiful.
So those came pretty nice, and those little squiggles and stuff on the chocolate. So, I mean, there's lots you can do to be creative with this.
Now, me personally, this looks beautiful, but I'm going to want more chocolate on my macaroons. It's more of a styling look, and I'm going to go dunk those in again afterwards.
Yes, I completely understand. So there we have it.
All right.
We have made our couple of different styling choices, different dips of chocolate, drizzles of chocolate. We still have some unanswered questions about tempering chocolate, which I will answer next week. I'll get you some more practical info if you are interested in taking that next step and making that chocolate continue to shine. We're going to continue the tradition of eating on camera.
We're getting lots of comments saying you're making everyone hungry. We have multiple people who are going to try this for dessert tonight. Pico on Twitter is asking us to make ravioli or gnocchi sometime soon, which I think are very good ideas. And Sue Dessa asks, do you have any other chips, like besides chocolate chips, that you might use as a topping on these?
Sure. You can use dark chocolate. I know some people like that. I have a whole bag here full of different types of chocolates.
Okay.
So this one is, I got some bittersweet chocolate. I have some white chocolate. All kinds of chocolates in this bag. I saved them because I don't always use all of them. So there's a lot of times when I'm just using whatever's available because I have a lot of leftovers. So
okay. All right. We have one last question for you before we sign off.
Okay.
Bob Morecraft is wondering, when you're using a macro lens, do you have a preference between autofocus and manual?
Well, I tend to use the autofocus pretty regularly because I trust them on these cameras. I do have manual focus lenses as well, but I tend to trust the autofocus as long as you're putting your focal point in the right spot, the spot you want it in. And obviously you should check your exposures in between frames, but I do trust it, yeah. Okay.
Great. I mean, we started getting a flurry of questions as everyone saw the after pictures. They are looking so good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. This was a fun one. We will be posting this recipe. We have multiple people asking for the recipe. So Andrew will send it to me after we're done with this episode, and we will get it up on social media for you guys to follow along and make this for dinner. And again, this is the Work From Home Cafe. Andrew will be joining us again next week, every Monday at 12 p.m. with a new recipe and some new tips on how to shoot mouth-watering photos. Thanks again, Andrew. It was so nice to make these with you today.
It was great. I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye, you too.